Hey there. Welcome back to Well-Oiled Operations. I am very excited to introduce you to my guest today, Niyc Pidgeon. Niyc actually is a new friend. We got to hang out 2 times in one day today. We're in a mastermind together this year. So really fun to get to know her. And I've just been so impressed with what I've been seeing from the outside. She is just a wealth of knowledge. She actually is the founder of a multi-million-dollar coaching brand called Unstoppable Success. You may have seen her. She has a best-selling book. She's a Hay House author. And she is somebody who is really into positive psychology. It is what she went to school for. And she is sharing how she uses that to help people build multi-million-dollar businesses. So we're going to get into what it looks like on the inside, how she's using this information with her team, how she's using it for herself to get back on track when you're having that bad day or you've had a bad promotion and you just are feeling like you'd rather throw yourself a pity party, right? I always say that. She's going to teach you how to move on. She's going to talk about different things you can do throughout your workday. A lot of us, the first thing she said to me was, have you been sitting there all day? Because I saw her a few hours before we jumped back on, like, kind of, like, I'm not going to lie, kind of. And she was just talking about different ways to like take those mid breaks throughout your day to just re-energize your body. I think this is going to be a really powerful episode for many of you. So enjoy today's episode. Please make sure to tag Niyc and I with just any feedback you have on today's episode. Hi, Niyc. Welcome to Well-Oiled Operations.
I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Me too. So, Niyc, before we dive in, I've got a lot of questions that I'm excited to ask you. Why don't you share a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey? How did you get started in business? What does it look like?
So my very first business was actually in high school when I sold tie-dye socks to other students.
Nice.
So I started my adventures early, but it was really only after I graduated from my master's degrees that I went full into business. And it was from reading Tim Ferriss's 4-Hour Workweek book.
Wow.
And I was sitting reading it on my lunch break and thinking about how I could start to generate income that wasn't related to trading my time for money.
Okay.
So I set up my first company, which was a supplements business.
Interesting.
In 2010 now.
Okay.
And I still use the product today. It's like a great product. It taught me a lot about websites. It taught me a lot about digital business. And I remember, like, to this day, that I think it was £39, that first sale that came through. And I had this big knowing. I was like, whoa, we don't have to work hard to be able to make money. And then from there, I moved into using my skills and my strengths that I'd learned over the years of trying and testing businesses and doing so much learning at university to then launch into the coaching side of things and running live events and doing speaking as well.
I love it. Okay. You said a phrase that people are going to go, wait, what? You said, we don't have to work so hard to make a lot of money. And there's people listening that are like, no, you don't understand. They are working so hard and sometimes to make a little bit amount of money. So that's where I'm really excited to kind of dive into that positive psychology. What got you into that space specifically?
So I was originally, after high school, I signed up to do mechanical and automotive engineering at university. And I then took a gap year and went and spent some time in Australia and chilled out a bit. And my partner and I that I was with at the time really got into like health and fitness. And he was seeing a sports psychologist and he came back from a session one day and he said, Niyc, it was amazing. Like, I was laid on the couch talking to this psychologist. And he said to me, like, close your eyes and visualize that you're on the field and you've got the cricket bat in your hand and you're going to hit the ball. Don't look at the fielders around you. Look for the gaps in between the fielders instead. So when he said that, I was like, oh my goodness, like, how much of our time are we spent focusing on what's wrong or the problems or the bills or like what we can't do? What if we just focused on what we can do instead? So that like kind of took me down a path of like being fascinated about human behavior and human performance. And I canceled my mechanical and automotive engineering degrees. I went on to study psychology with sport, then did a teaching and lecturing degree, and then did a master's in positive psychology. Now, the positive psychology component is interesting because psychology, as usual, does tend to focus more on disorder and disease. It focuses on where did this come from, or let's take a look at the different patterns. Whereas positive psychology focuses on human strength and virtue and what we do well. So it felt like a very productive kind of, not that it's about feeling positive all of the time, because it's impossible to do that. But we focus on like how even in tough times, we can find the gold within those challenges too.
So good. So what's funny is I was on a team meeting and there was a new team member, and she said there was something like bad that we didn't love that happened, and how I very quickly like turned it around and just was back on track and went positive. And she was like, wow, I can't believe how fast you got out of like that one spot into the next thing. And I was saying to her, you know, that's what you need to do as an entrepreneur. I mean, if you get so stuck into the one problem client or the one negative review or the refund request or the chargeback, you won't make money because you're so stuck thinking about that horrible person that did that horrible thing to you, right? So how have you seen this now with entrepreneurs? Like, how can we build that skill set of the negative, but quickly moving in to get back to the positive?
Yeah, there's an intervention in positive psychology that's called the silver lining. So in its simplest form, it's looking for the lesson and the blessing in the thing that happened. And that could be like something that happens in a moment, and then you have a perspective shift. And like you say, you move on, because it is so important to recognize and acknowledge. I say, name it, claim it, choose to move through it. If you ignore that it's ever happened, it's probably going to be there lingering in the background, and it's going to come back to haunt you. So it's not about being positive all of the time, but it's about looking at, okay, right, that thing's happened. It is what it is. And how can I learn and grow from it? Like, what are we going to do differently? How can we course correct? How might this make us stronger moving forwards? And I think when you can ask those questions, or you can choose to say, okay, cool, and rather than staying stuck in it, then there's so much more that's possible from there. It's also not about not working hard. Like, I'm a really hard worker, and I think it's about how can we use our strengths so that the work that we do feels more energizing and more fun, and actually we become stronger and more successful because of it.
Well, and that kind of leads me into burnout a little bit. How can we make sure we are working smart? We can be using this to our advantage.
So we have a well-being first company, and it just, you can see it's like giving me an exhale thinking about my business, because it feels so good. And I know not all entrepreneurs have that. So one of the things that we do, for example, we look at the structure of the year, the structure of the quarter, the month, and the week, and we focus on what do we need to feel good and have great days at work. So every last week of the month is a Zoom-free week in our company, which feels amazing.
Yeah, I bet it does.
So we have
I'm
like
on Zoom all day, every
sprint.
day.
So we have a 3-week sprint, 1 week off. And then Fridays are always Zoom-free. And then we have Mondays that are team days. But everything that we do is framed with positive psychology. So we're always asking in our team, how can we work more in our genius zones so that we're more effective, more productive, and so that everyone gets more done? But it feels easier and lighter because of that. And we're always asking as well, like, what do we need in terms of supporting our own health and mental health through things like getting enough sleep, your nutrition, your movement, your restoration. So even if you do have a big day of Zoom, do you have breaks put in? And what you're doing in those breaks? Are you practicing breath work? Are you moving your body and going out for a walk? Or one of my favorites is the mid-afternoon reset. So if you've had a day and you've got to like 3 or 4 p.m., take a break for a few hours, go take a sauna, take a walk, do a workout. You're going to have such renewed energy to come back to your day, and you'll get way more done rather than going on this decline hour by hour until the end.
I love that. So I recently switched to afternoon, like basically after work workouts, which I've always been a morning workout person. And I can't tell you, like, I think people always would say, oh, it's actually better to work out in the morning because of certain reasons. But for me, I think that like de-stressing at the end of a work day is what is really, I need that more than I need to be in shape. I'm in shape. I need to de-stress, right? So I think
100%.
that's so interesting. And I have right next to me is a treadmill for the under the desk.
Yeah.
So if there's ever like a time during the day that I can be on Zoom or something, but be walking, that really does make a difference.
100%. And those
So good.
transition exercises, it could be
Yeah.
like a really hot shower, a really hot bath. It could be taking a nap, something like that, just to shift the energy and signal that you're moving into a different time block.
So good. What did you notice after you started doing Zoom free weeks once a month?
Well, first of all, when we come back to Zoom the next week, we're way more creative. It feels way more energizing. We deliver better, we serve better, we work together better.
So
And
good.
also in that week of no Zoom, we're way more creative. So whether it's writing content or writing books or just having ideas about strategy within the company, you can't do that if you're constantly filling your time. So blocking in, it doesn't even have to be a full week if that feels like too much for you, but block in like some gray space in your calendar so that you've actually got time for you with no planned activities. And it's hard to start off with.
So I can imagine it being hard. I assume you have a remote. Is all of your people mostly online on Zoom?
Yeah.
Where are you located now?
I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay. Got it. So a lot of people listening, they may have local brick and mortar locations, but they might not be working in them. They might also be online, but I know we have quite a few these days with remote as well. So this is really good to hear.
Yeah. And I love even just reminding myself to get out of the house. Like I love being at home, but then I go out and I drive my car and I put the music on. And I'm like, I feel so good.
Yeah. Just to take that break. It really does.
Positivity boosters. We call them in positive psychology.
So I know you use positive psychology in selling, and I would love to kind of dig into that a little bit. I think, there are people out there that love sales, but even those people usually had to kind of get into it. So what can we talk about with positive psychology when it comes to selling?
So one of the big things is to ask more questions and celebrate the things that other people are sharing that are going well. So in positive relationships theory, we talk about something called active constructive responding. So it's where like someone shares good news with you and it might be like, oh, I got the job. This feels amazing. And we can have the tendency to bypass that celebration. And it's like, oh, awesome. Or, well, let me tell you about my job that I just got. Or, oh, great. Well, what's for dinner? So active constructive responding is being present with and for the person, whether that's in a DM or whether it's actually physically in person, and celebrating the thing that they're sharing, and then also asking questions about it. And it sounds so common sense, but how often are we actually doing it?
100%. And this is for clients, but it's also for your team. When they're sharing something personal, I was like, okay, let's get back to work, right? We want to go so quickly.
Yeah, exactly. So the more that you can ask, okay, what's exciting about that for you? Or what's the next step for that? That builds the bond. So imagine that this is a prospective new student or client or customer in DMs. It's going to build the strength of that relationship much more quickly.
So good. So I'd love to kind of hear your journey from 6 to 7 to 7 and beyond. Where do you feel like some of your skill sets were so important and so crucial to what you've built today? Like, what are some of your strengths?
I feel, well, some of my strengths are definitely connection. So we have like a values-driven business. So connection, generosity, growth. I am very, very strategic. So I'm really good at like being able to see the big picture and work out like what's when things go in, and that feels really fun to me. But also like building teams and building communities. Some of the most favorite things that I do are being able to bring people in together in person, whether it's at a retreat or it's a live event, and then being able to replicate that through our team. So we do a strengths profile called the Gallup and Clifton Strengths. Yeah, you've probably heard of it. So we do that, and we know what each of us are in the team, and we have a table that looks at how we all work best together. And we're constantly in that process of reviewing it every 3 months and saying like, how can we show up at our best as we move through this next quarter together?
Yeah.
As well as that, I have asked for reflections from friends about what my superpowers are. And I invite everyone to do that, because sometimes we can't see it for ourselves. And my friend said once, she was like, Nick, you're amazing at connecting people together. You're amazing at sales, and you're really amazing at showing up. No matter what, you're going to show up and you're going to get it done. So I think it's those things, once you recognize them, you can really live into them so much more.
You know what is so powerful too? I kind of experience this with the dance world. If I tell a child like, oh my goodness, this jump is getting so good, they will go home and practice that jump even more, because they're like, I'm good at that. They identify as this person who's good at this thing. So when you ask your friends, like, what do you see in me? I would suspect when she says, oh, you get it done, you will like want to get it done even more, because like, oh, that's right. That's who I am. Right. Yeah. So good. So I think that's just a powerful piece of, you might be able to identify it, but when somebody else says it, it feels different than you like patting yourself in the back.
Yeah. And it cements it so much more. And I love that you mentioned kids as well, because the original research into growth mindset was done with kids. So it looked at our ability to focus on the process rather than just the goal. So the fixed mindset is like, it's either fully right or fully wrong. It's like very full failure or full success. Yeah. Whereas the growth mindset is, how can we continually develop and practice and grow and be in that process and find the joy within it as well, rather than just focusing only on the outcome.
Yeah. So good. When you, like, I assume your culture in your team is very growth minded, very positive. When somebody new comes in, are you, first of all, just making sure you are only hiring people that are growth minded? Or is it something that you're like teaching when they come into the culture? Like, how do you get them to kind of play the part in this business?
It's a little bit of both. So we do the Colby assessment. We do the Clifton Strengths Finder on hiring. So we know we also do human design as well. So we know kind of where people would fit and who might be a great fit. And it's always a work in progress. Yeah. So it's a case of like, we're all continually evolving. Where you can apply this to teams or to life or to coaching or to business. You don't always have to change the tools that you use, because you're going to be changing. So we're continually revisiting the positive psychology practices, whether one of the team are having a baby, or someone in the team is traveling a lot at the time, or we've just got too much on our plate, so we need to simplify. Whatever it is, we always come back to those fundamental questions, which really give us almost like a guiding center for the company.
Yeah, so good. Your brand is Unstoppable Success. What are some things that you see stop people from being successful?
A lot around like fear of judgment, a lot around just overthinking things. So I have a real tester's mindset, and I'm always like, right, okay, let's just do it. Let's try it. If it doesn't work, it's okay. At least we'll have some data on it. And then I can teach from that place, and I can show what did work rather than what didn't, or I can show what didn't work as well. I think a lot of people are scared to test, and they have this like perfectionism that's like, oh, I'm scared to fail. But when you do have that growth approach, you understand that none of it's failure. All of it is just market research. All of it is a test. And it reminds me of when I first left England to move to America, and I was in the airport and I texted my dad. I was like halfway around the world. And I was like, Dad, I'm really scared. It's like, it's all right, Nick. If it doesn't work, you can always come home.
Right.
I think that's my philosophy.
Test, right? It's like just a test. No, I think that's so good. And when we're talking about like what can stop you, this really is coming back to the mindset and the way that you're thinking about things and the way you deal with results and the data. So it's so easy for us to say like, well, you just try it and see and you get the data. I know, I believe that. I know you believe that. But when somebody's in it, they're like, but you don't understand. I poured my heart and soul into this promotion and 2 people bought, right? And they had like hopes of 100. How do you get yourself, I know we talked about this a little bit in the beginning of like reshifting, but how do you take the drama out of this?
Yeah, they say that failed expectations are the cause of all suffering. And I always,
yes.
Right.
Yeah, so true.
So true. I come back to practices like gratitude, which is so simple. And it's so powerful as well, because you can look at those two people that you sold the places for and say, I'm so grateful for these two people. And I'm so grateful for all of the learnings. Even with selling two people, like, that's great. You've still got a proof of concept in some way. You want to look at the stats that you've got, what it is that did work, go and deliver to those people, get testimonials, be able to sell again from there. But it's really coming back to, okay, I'm like so grateful for where I'm at right now and getting super present, and then aligning with what might be like a next best possible step.
Yeah.
I always say to our students as well, it's really easy to be on this treadmill, whether it's entrepreneurship or goal setting, just this like go, 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 go all of the time. So you get so caught up and so lost in like, why are we actually doing this? So two things on that. First of all, like, we do need to really honor and celebrate all that we are and everything that we've done. So write a list of 10 awesome things about you, or 20 even, and keep it somewhere where you can see it. And then secondly, really powerfully connect in and start to understand more about what it is that drives you. When you are working for a mission and a purpose, there's so much energy, and you will never not do the thing that you need to do because of the impact that you're here to create.
Now, that reminds me of a story about, I think Russell Brunson was trying to sell ClickFunnels, and is it Drew Canoli? Something like that. But he basically used Drew's testimonial, one person, to sell ClickFunnels and to really show how it can be done. So even you just saying like, go pour into those people and give them the most amazing results and get them to have really great testimonials. Even if you just have one person that you could pour into, even if they don't pay you, and it's just you giving them a great experience to be able to use that information, that's how it starts to snowball in your direction. Versus, like you were saying, when you're not grateful and all you can think about are the 98 that didn't buy versus the 2 that bought. I mean, those 2 are never going to buy again when you're not focused on them.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
It's just like in the beginning when you were saying where you focus on the fields. It's so hard to focus on the gaps. Like, we want to focus on everything that's going to stop us. Yeah. Or how hard it is.
Yeah. And it's such a practice to continue to realign with what you do want rather than what you don't want. The mind is such a powerful thing.
Now, I know somebody who teaches this, you are probably at another level than a lot of people listening, but I am sure it is still difficult for you. What are your like favorite hacks to get yourself back like on track?
I love an ice bath and a sauna.
Oh, okay.
So I do those kind of like 3 or 4 times a week. And that's like really, really good for your nervous system as well. I love 80s disco music.
Okay.
Now that sounds like, that's like so simple, but music gives me such an energy. Yep. And then from that, I call them like gateway shifts. So it's the gateway. It's like, what's the easiest tool that you can reach for right now that can give you a shift? Because to go from feeling like down in the dumps about something or like everything's going wrong to doing a 7-day silent retreat, it's too much of a big jump. But what you can do is grab your journal and practice gratitude. What you can do is call your best friend or the one that's the cheerleader for you and just say like, I'm having one of those days. Like, coming up.
Yeah. And the thing is, even with the friend, pick the right friend, the one that is going to cheer you up, not the one that's going to throw the pity party with you. And oh my goodness, it is horrible. And like the wrong friend can make that even worse. So I love that you said like, find the cheerleader. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, so good. All right, Nick, where can people find more about you? Any places online? Just where would be the best place for them to connect with you?
Instagram's my favorite place to hang out. So I'm Niyc Pidgeon on there. And then we've got the podcast and the website as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here today. So fun to connect. I am so excited to have this on the podcast. I appreciate it, Nick.
Thank you.